no mic. It can, yeah, works? Great.
Perfect. So, Arno, I will not ask you to introduce Sandbox, I guess.
Sure.
Thankfully, everyone knows it, but yeah, please.
Yeah, so sorry for being late. I thought we'd have a bit more of a break, but this is great, actually. I'm great, super happy to be back. So the Sandbox is, let's call it decentralized metaverse, which is a platform for builders and creators to be able to create their own experiences or games that are interactive, immersive. We work with, we partner with a lot of different brands, including The Walking Dead, celebrities like Paris Hilton, Snoop Dogg, all kinds of different big partners, but also we really empower people from all over the world really to start building and creating their own experiences. And then through blockchain, basically, we let them own whatever they create and be really in control of whatever they make. We have a map on which, that contains 166,000 parcels of land, which through land you can actually share your experience with the world. So that's kind of how it works. We can get into more details later.
Thank you very much. And so apart from being from the Blockchain at HEC Association, you guys have your own projects that you've been starting this recent weeks, months, years, I'm not sure exactly. Can you talk about it?
Yeah, so I started my project Clarify, which is a tool to track and gain clarity in tracking DeFi wallets. So really DeFi users oriented. So it'll debunk, like if you know debunk Ethereum, but really focused on the tracking of the activity actually, because people want to know what they are doing. They want to follow movement of other people, but the ground tools are kind of tricky to use and not really clarify. So I want to improve this.
Cool. And what about you, Ethan?
Mine's less interesting. So I'm a venture investor at Generative Partners. So we are actually a new fund that just got our first PR issue yesterday. But obviously we've been around for a long time because we pivoted from Web 2 to Web 3, which is kind of our core competence actually. We used to invest in mobile internets, about 40 unicorns and 13 IPOs for the past 15 years. And we definitely have encountered, obviously, around 2017, a lot of crypto projects that we took a look at, a lot of supply chain finance, a lot of RWA from the last narratives. So we did have our encounters, but this is the first, well, I guess the determined move into Web3 is creating a new fund. Yeah.
Great. We'll talk about that for sure later on. And Aurora, you're focused on impact, right?
Right, yeah. So I work for blockchain at HEC, but at the same time, I'm also a serial entrepreneur. Yeah. First of all, my project is about education technology, and then now devote all my time on my second startup, Impactopia. Yeah, it's on my T-shirt. Yeah, it's a Web 2.5 philanthropy and social impact platform. We aim to help all of the NGOs all around the world collect donations with crypto based on blockchain and try to connect all of the impact makers together based on their different social cause with same common social cause, common value. Yeah. To make a bigger impact together. Yeah. So that would be very crucial to do the mass adoption. We just found that, so we called it Web 2.5. Yeah.
Thanks. So yeah, when you're talking about values, definitely that's something that people need to rely on, and I guess we've talked about that for a few seconds earlier. Arno, I guess the first way to onboard people and to have them want to come in is to make sure that they understand why they're coming. So why the blockchain?
Okay, so yeah, I think The blockchain just provides a technological solution. It's not a product in and of itself for, I would say regular people. And so there needs to be a value proposition and a problem that it solves. When it comes to the sandbox, we're originally, again, like a Web 2 game, that started over 10 years ago, and we're still actually on mobile right now in the App Store. But that's the old version. And the old version was off-chain, obviously, and it was very popular. I mean, there were, again, 14 million downloads throughout the years, and it was really a UGC-based platform, meaning people could create their experiences, share it with people, directly on their mobile, and everybody could enjoy everyone else's different experience, similar to Mario Maker, for example. But something they noticed, the co-founders noticed, Seb and Arthur, is that the engagement started dropping among the creators because they weren't getting rewarded for really contributing to the success of the platform. And so they thought, we need to decentralize this, and the blockchain was actually the one solution that solved all this. And I think it speaks for a really great use case of why the blockchain is so important for people. At least, I think it needs a context, basically. When it comes to the sandbox, this is a very clear context. I think you see it in video games overall with the fact that there are a lot of different digital items that have value for people, just based on the sheer amount of time they spend in a game, grinding a game to actually get them, whether it's a PlayStation achievement. I have friends who will grind whatever game they buy to have all the platinum achievements. I don't know if you guys are gamers, but like some people are really into that. And for example, that would be a great application to have directly on the blockchain, because if you switch from PlayStation to Xbox, or at some point PlayStation changes their system, it'd be kind of cool, I think, for example, to have those on the blockchain, and then you can create communities among like the biggest Dark Souls players, and you have to be platinum to be able to get into that. And those things, I think, is just one example. I'm taking, again, like more of an entertainment approach, because this is where I come from, but there are many other different applications you can think of.
Yeah, sure. Maxime, thank you for joining us.
Sorry.
How are you?
I'm super sorry.
No problem.
Come again.
I'm doing great, thank you. So we're talking about fostering mass adoption and making everyone, if we can, come into the Web3 and to the exciting things that we are excited about. Maybe not everyone now, but maybe I have this question. Is mass adoption, should it be the mission of any Web3 project funder? Or, to explain that, what we're saying is that when you start a Web3 project, depending on the project, you first want a community of people who will be engaged, who will really believe in what you're doing. And maybe sometimes this is not compatible with mass adoption. Maybe for some Web3 founders, it's not about that. What is your point of view regarding this part?
Yeah, my main answer would be no. It doesn't always have to be for mass adoption. I think, well, it could be the main driver for anything that you're doing, but for something that you're building, not all products are actually going to work within the scope of mass adoption. There's multiple examples today. Let's say Safe, for example, like multi-sigs. Do you really think that normal people or not professionals in the crypto industry are going to actually want to know how a multisig is going to function? I don't think so. So it really depends on the nature of the product that you're building. I think, again, it should be the main driver for anything that we're trying to alleviate, through anything that we're trying to solve with Web3 technology, but it's so large. Like, Web3 is crypto, it's NFTs, it's DeFi. There are subcategories in a very big, I was going to say bubble, very big markets. So it should be the main driver, but it shouldn't be, it should be part of your vision. I don't think it should be necessarily a purely tangible objective, because it really depends on the nature of the business you're building.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Do you guys want to?
Yeah, I totally agree on the fact that currently the big projects that take the bridge are not for mass adoption, not for my parents will never use this because they are not the targets. So yes, at the beginning of a project, you just have to identify to who you are talking with, and just clarify at the beginning. That's it.
Yeah. Maybe to jump also on what you said, Arno, about, for instance, having Web3 games inside a PlayStation or Xbox or things like that. Would it be about maybe saying also that reaching mass adoption is maybe the mission of these traditional or Web2 companies? Maybe our job as Web3 people is to convince them so they can convince the mass?
I think that really the thing about Web3 is that it makes people a lot more involved in the community. I think it's a lot deeper of an integration of your community. So it doesn't matter if it's big or small. I think once you are within a Web3 community, whether it's through an NFT collection, with PFPs, or via gamified platform or other kinds of even DeFi solutions, you are somehow a lot more, I would say, involved. That's usually something you see, at least in, again, like video gaming and entertainment and everything. We don't have the same mass adoption that you have in regular, I would say, Web2 games. But I think it's more about first the depth, and then the breadth, of course, comes after. What you need is really solid roots, basically, in order for you to be able to create and show value, and also champion, I think, the ones that are contributing to growing your platform. And you see it with, again, the use cases we've had among our builders. So this is really, this year we're opening features for people to be able to publish on their land independently. We've started basically allowing people to apply for publication of their experiences. So if you create a game in the sandbox today and you have land, you can actually apply to actually get it out there. And we're more and more going towards this UGC model. We used to have more curated approaches to creating what we called alpha seasons, because we're still in alpha stage, but really we're starting to deploy this in order to become a UGC platform. So for that, really our goal, especially in comms, is to really kind of showcase and champion the people who are actually building this. And I think based on that, people will realize, oh, there's really value add to being part of the sandbox based on how I want to engage with my community by creating these interactive experiences, but also just overall, just being part of this culture that we're trying to really build throughout the world. We have, again, partnering with over 400 brands that are, known worldwide. It also gives a lot of exposure for whoever wants to create their own experiences, and you can do it no code. So I think it's a combination of really being appealing to, for example, the Paris Hilton fans. Paris Hilton is very active in Web3. Being able to, create a tool for Paris Hilton and her team to create cool experiences for her fans, and then we onboard them through the sandbox. But also for many people who are at the sandbox because maybe they were a fan of the Smurfs or AURORA, which is a Korean IP, or Nainchen, which is a Taiwanese singer. Like, we can always kind of create these mashups that make communities kind of intertwine and learn from each other. And I think that's how we can build, by, again, not showing, hey, you can do this with the blockchain, but here's your favorite IP on there, and check this out. In this neighborhood, you can also find this one and that one and that one, and start developing, like, discovering all these new universes.
Yeah, so on one side, you propose a set of tools to these master ambassadors, to take, like, the case of Paris Hilton or Snoop Dogg, obviously, or others. And on the other side, you address the mass by saying, they are here.
Yeah,
and they have
exactly.
new experience. They are empowering you with new solutions, right?
Yeah, exactly. The idea really is to be able to, again, it all starts and ends with the creators. Just like if you're a UGC platform, YouTube is nothing with its creators. Well, it's very similar for the sandbox too. And it's, again, like, because of the barriers of entry you have with creating a wallet and all those things that seem very second nature to us because we've been in this, Web3 kind of community for a long time. We need to educate, and we need also, I think, to humanize. Through communication is very important for people to understand that there are people behind this. It's not just, people hiding behind very expensive JPEGs.
Well, just one comment, maybe, coming back on ownership and the community approach. I think, and also coming back on your question, comparing Web3 enterprises or things we're trying to build, comparatively speaking, to Web2 companies. The main thing that changes from a community standpoint is your clients, let's say you're a brand, right? You issue NFTs for some reason, right? The thing that changes is that now they have a financial incentive to be a part of what you're building. And to give kind of an illustration to that, it's in a similar way the difference between an employee in a company and someone who owns equity. There is a switch in mentality from someone who's working for a fixed salary and someone who's working with equity in the company, because when you have equity in the company, when you work more, there is, in theory, a direct influence over what you earn. And that specific switch really, to my mind, happens with the community approach of brands and Web3 companies of brands. I think that's the most, or one of the most important approaches is the fact that you can directly have an impact over your financial success while still being attached to a brand that you don't own. Which kind of, it doesn't really make any sense when you think about it that way. But when you actually own an NFT from a brand and you're active in the community, you talk about it around your, or to your network, it has a direct positive or negative, but supposedly positive effect on what you own and what you have. I don't think it ever happened before, at such a scale.
Yeah.
In the history of tech, I think.
Yeah, somehow it makes, maybe we could say crowdfunding was like a first level of this.
Yeah, in a way. You're
but
right.
at the same time, and it's because today we're talking about mass adoption, given what you just said, it should almost be the opposite. You need to like micro-target the right people who will represent you well, who will not say bad things about your project or your brand. I mean, isn't it sometimes it's the opposite? You don't want mass adoption. You want to find the exact right people who could be the right ambassadors for your project? Would you say that?
Well, yeah, again, it really depends on what you're building, because if you're really confident on what you're building, giving a micro part of that to a community, it's also an experience. It's just trying something new, trying some new or to add some new stakeholders into the loop. It has some risks, of course. There's brands that have launched NFT collections and that have been absolutely trashed for good or bad reasons. So I don't have a perfect answer for you. It depends on what you're building. And it's a risk, of course, for most companies, specifically now, given the fact that we have a framework, legal, technical, and UX-wise, that is a bit difficult. But it's something new that I think every brand should try. It doesn't have to be, new people. Let's say Louis Vuitton, for example. They only sent those soul-bound tokens to very high-profile clients that they already had. Yeah. So it's a way of incentivizing them in a new way. It doesn't have to be completely public.
That's true. Well, now, guys, let's talk about the famous bear market, where we've been in there for like 18 months, more or less, and words like NFT, blockchain, Web3 have become enemies. And we're seeing more and more companies trying to use blockchain technologies, but without using these words. Maybe some other are not doing the same, but that's what we're seeing a lot. And every time I'm talking with an entrepreneur launching something, he always tell me that now we're using the blockchain, but we don't say it. Is it because of the bear market, or is it going to last? I mean, even when we will be back in the bull market or something, are we still going to use these words, or was it just like a mean to an end?
Ethan, go ahead.
Please.
Yeah, so I really hate the word bear market. It's not that I hate bear markets. Markets are ups and downs. The volatility makes up the markets, and especially for a new asset class like crypto. It's just completely normal. If you have been through a couple cycles, then I think most people will find it just another turnaround. Regarding the question of why I don't think we're in a bear market anymore, that there are a couple factors that are causing the current circumstances, and a lot of it are due to very macro and monetary issues. That affects pretty much everything we see or we own or we use, right? I think in terms of specifically for crypto, as long as there is more people building, there's more projects coming up, and like you said, a lot of people now, they are getting into crypto since they think it's a good time, and a lot of Web2 developers are coming to build on crypto projects because the big techs, they're also affected by this bear market, right? So as long as a sandbox community is a huge focus, that goes across any crypto project. So as the community grows, the industry grows, and I think this bear market is it's set off to turn around. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's market value and there's intrinsic value, which is the what users perceive as being value, and that's what we're focusing on. Really, is just building more of that actual use case value. That again, making our games more fun, making our tools easier to use, so that builders can make more fun games. And if this works out, then the whole ecosystem will work out. And so, whether it's up or down or whatever, we keep building. That's the most important.
Yeah.
I think just about the bad buzzwords as of today. I think the reason why they're seen as bad buzzwords is because there's a fracture between what the vast majority of people think and not even think. There's a fracture between what normal people see from the crypto market and what's actually happening. Because the thing is, the reason why those words are actually considered as bad words or bad buzzwords is because Bored Apes went down 95%. Pretty much, right? If you want to simplify it in the most absurd way possible, it's pretty much what happened. So I think it's fine if they still or if they keep being bad buzzwords, and we're going to say digital twins or we're going to say something else for NFTs. It's who cares as long as the technology is there. NFT in a way, just the acronym non-fungible token, just the definition of fungible is something that's been tough to explain for everybody in the professional industry, to explain to a normal person. So I don't think it really matters how we call them, for as long as we use them. And to take the words of our famous sailor, there's no second best in terms of technology usage, in my mind, at least for some use cases, not for all. But so I think it doesn't really matter how we call them, for as long as we use them.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
Do you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think it's great, like right now all the mainstream audience do not talk anymore about all the NFT scams because it was a really bad vision of the technology. But right now, even if it's the bear market, if you look at the numbers, the people are really using it. It's still, all the Ethereum wallets are very, very active right now. And project funders are building great products. There are a lot of technology going on, which lead, I hope, in a better way in a few years.
Thanks. You wanted to add something?
Yeah, I want to add something. Yeah, I think now we always say that during the bear market is the best timing. For builders to build. So why? During the 18 months, what happened? The NFT, there are less and less bubbles, hypes, the financial speculations. So, as the future of the NFTs, as we talk about, it can be. We will use it as a. We will use it more of its utility, not the financial valuation, not the speculation. It can be just a ticketing, a DID. Soulbound token to do the identity verification. It can be way more that. And now, since, during this bear market recently, there is some popular conception as RWA, real world asset, these kind of things. That means we embrace the new the blockchain technology. We combine it with way more physical things or some real assets, So it can be with less hype, less bubbles, but way more, near our real life, So we are waiting for that. And as for the last cycle, when NFT, burns into our views, it just pushed every properties, virtual properties, such as and other concepts such as metaverse and other kind of technologies, VR, AR, XR, things to the peak. And then, since the MVP can't be well established, we still need more, maybe computing power, maybe there are other basic infrastructure is not ready for that. So the MVP can't be well established. And combined with other factors, as they already told, maybe the financial regulations, other things. Yeah, for Web3 world, we need a time of silence. We need to adjust ourselves. Yeah, we need to build and wait for better timing for the next circle. Yeah, and maybe there is some hotter concept to come, and then the cycle, the bull market will come back. Yeah.
Sure. Or maybe bull cycle, so we don't say bear market or bear cycle, whatever. But the technical point is actually interesting. On your side, Arno, do you feel like there are some technical challenges that could help you to reach the masses? Like, what are you working on right now in the technical part?
Sure. There's obviously the technical aspects of creating a gaming ecosystem. It's, again, we're still in alpha stage, and what is clear is that we're not just making a game, we're making a platform and a set of tools for people to be able to create their games, and we want to be able to honor whatever creativity is in our community. So we want to create more different features for people to be able to develop also whatever they want to do in terms of gaming mechanics. So, but beyond that, from a user experience standpoint also, we still need to make this more seamless for people to just be able to onboard straight into the sandbox, but also into other metaverse platforms. So, we're working with our co-founders signed OMA 3, which is a kind of an agreement among different Web3 actors, specifically, when it comes to metaverse, about standards when it comes to the type of files and everything that we can be able to create, so that we can create interoperability. For example, GLTF files would be the standards for 3D assets, for example, if you want to take them from the sandbox to another metaverse project and so on. That would make things a lot easier for people to be able to navigate and really create a metaverse, because we're all about decentralization and interoperability. The other thing is just as simple as, again, I think Max, you mentioned that last time about MetaMask. Do we still want to be using this in 10 years? We need to make this more seamless. So today, if you go on sandbox.game, you can actually register, and it can create, you can really register with your Google account or whatever, and it will create seamlessly a crypto wallet, because you do need a crypto wallet to be associated with your account. That's already a good step in the right direction, but I feel like the fact that there is still this necessity maybe is still a little bit difficult for some people. So again, what we're trying to do is really kind of think of all the aspects, whether it's from a builder perspective or from an end user gamer perspective. We want to make sure everything is as smooth as possible, and there are still hurdles based on the fact that Web3 and the blockchain is in and of itself kind of a technology with a few more extra steps.
Yeah. Could you explain regarding the gamers? To me, it's really unbelievable. We provide them a new way to own their things. I mean, to own the car that they're using for their game or whatever. But still, it feels like they are massively rejecting the blockchain. Do you have an explanation to that?
I think overall, I mean, I'm a gamer. It's gonna kind of kill the vibe when I think about my age, but I've been a gamer since the late 80s, early 90s, meaning that I've seen, you know, as a user at least, you know, different kind of generations of games. I remember people being super angry at seeing the then new Monkey Island that came out in 2006, which was a huge IP from LucasArts in the 90s, and it was coming out in different chapters. And people were like, why can't they just release the game and I pay for the entire game and all that stuff? And so every time in gaming, because people are so passionate, again, I think it has to do with the depth of the community. You can be a fan of a series, of a movie or movie franchise. I'm not saying those people are not, you know, super fans, but when you're a fan of a game, you've invested like 100 hours at least into it, probably, depending on the game. And it makes you that much more passionate about whatever direction that media takes, or that IP takes. And so when you have such dedicated fans, whatever happens next is going to affect them even more. And so there was resistance to, again, this kind of like chapter approach to video games, or even like early release stuff. Like you have a lot of indie game developers that need an income before they actually finalize the game, and it's already really playable. But I have friends who are really big gamers and they really don't like that thing. But if you play like a game like Valheim that's been out on Steam for like a couple of years, I mean, you can play so much stuff, but it's still not a finished game. But you can still sink, you know, hundreds of hours into the game. So to me, I'm open to that. I've always been less worried about the format than the content in and of itself. But going back to Web3, you've seen the same problem with freemium, you know, whether it's on mobile gaming or even, you know, games like Warzone is a pretty recent game when you think about how long it took for a company like Activision to actually develop like a freemium model where really Warzone is free to play, but then you can, you know, buy skins and all kinds of different kits, and they had to tread a fine line with, you know, it not being, as they call pay to win, meaning you need to buy certain, you know, things that will give you an unfair advantage of the game. So all of these balances are, you know, things that need to be worked out for big game companies to make sure that their community accepts that step into, you know, tokenization of assets and things like that. So is it going to happen among big Web2 companies? Probably. We've seen certain companies that, you know, we're partnering with that are interested in testing out the waters. But I think it's going to take some time for them to figure it out. When you look at a game like, sorry, this is getting really into nerd talk, but there's this series of games called Ultima, and Ultima Online came out in '98, I think, and they had this, and it was like one of the first MMORPGs, and it was a disaster in the beginning because the in-game economy crashed, literally. And that wasn't even on the blockchain. It was actually an economy within the game. So I think it took a while for people to be able to like balance out all those things. And for a major gaming company, whether it's again Activision or EA or whatever, like they've never really announced anything that has to do with NFTs. I think they're, and I can't speak for them, but I think most companies, I think, are looking to see where it's going, and then when they think the first like things are well balanced, then they'll probably dip their toes into it. And while at the Sandbox we make, again, empowerment and blockchain integration really part of our DNA, because the point is really for us to empower the creators. That's where our value add is, I think.
Thanks.
I think the point at which NFTs will be accepted by the gaming community, to take your example, is going to be, I don't know if it will happen. I hope it will, but I don't know if it will. Is when you have assets that are transferable from a franchise to another franchise. So basically cross-franchise assets. I think that would be the penultimate, version of acceptation of blockchain in the gaming industry, because when you think within a franchise, you don't really need NFTs to have, cross-game assets. Let's take Ubisoft, for example. You can have Assassin's Creed skins in a Rabbids game, or you can have Assassin's Creed skins in a Rainbow Six game. Rainbow Six actually tried NFTs at one point went super bad. But the thing is, it's also difficult, I think, from a publisher perspective. I'm not an expert in video games, but even though I'm a player, I'm not a professional in the video game industry. Maybe you can complete on what I'm going to say. But basically, the thing that publishers have to understand is NFTs are going to open or are able to open the secondary market for them, which is, to my mind, a game changer. Let's say you're, I don't know, again, Activision, you release some Call of Duty skins, and you can get, let's say, you set the royalties to like 10 or even 15%, which is huge. I don't hope they do that, but let's say even 5-6%. They can get 5 or 6% of revenue without having to know who's buying which skin at any point in time. It's a game changer, I think, in terms of revenue for those. Honestly, I just think, I'm not an expert. And when they realize that, and if it happens, cross-franchise assets happen, that would be a game changer. But I don't think it's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years. I think it's going to take longer than that.
Sorry if I may add to this, and I don't want to hog the mic, so feel free to cut me off anytime. But it's, I'm pretty passionate about this. There's one thing that I agree, but even playing a little bit of devil's advocate, because I'm speaking to people who tell me, why do we need the blockchain? When it comes to these things, for example, if it's an intra-company kind of cross-franchise kind of thing, you could just say, whether it's Activision or Ubisoft or another publisher, they could very well not use the blockchain and use an intra, kind of like a very centralized approach to having assets in Call of Duty, going into Overwatch and then going into Diablo and all that stuff. And they could just do that without the blockchain. I think one of the drivers is the more we see partnering brands coming in. For example, you see it with, Tim Sweeney talked about it when he actually did mention the word metaverse quite a lot in his keynote about Epic and what they want to do. They already have partnerships with a lot of different IPs, and even Ralph Lauren, for example, they made skins in there. And if Ralph Lauren one day wants to, say, hey, I want to do something with this other platform, whether it's Roblox or whatever, like those partners will really have a much more of an incentive for it to be on the blockchain, because they don't want to be dependent on, a centralized system that was developed by Epic, for example. If they want to be on Roblox, then they want to have to be able to bridge those, and interoperability is going to be then, I think, super important for the blockchain to be to reach mass adoption. And I think the ones that are going to push for that, or that will have an incentive for that to happen, probably won't be the publishers as much as the IPs that are partnering with the publishers. If those publishers want to keep attracting, again, like different brands to, whether it's Fortnite, whether it's Call of Duty or whatever.
Yeah, so for that they would need to change completely their habits, the way they've been working so far, because they would need to go to the same table and discuss how they do that, how they do things together. Somehow it makes me think about Web3 regulation. It's like, we know that if it was more regulated, definitely we would have a better adoption, but it is worldwide, so we would need a worldwide regulation. How can we hope that people will completely change their mindset and at some point accept decentralization for what it really is? Do you believe it? In 5, 10 years, maybe 20 years, I don't know. But is it like, we had that with democracy, like, is it a journey or is it a destination? What about decentralization? I mean,
Yeah, so it's really interesting because last night I went to a very degen party, and then there was a video that was shown, direct. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. And then the last sentence, which is stuck in my head, was that, well, DeFi has to go dark. So to me, I mean, obviously recently there's the Ripple case that's blown, everyone knows it, everyone heard about it. But I think it is still very ambiguous that where the authorities will stand on this issue, because you can't really tell from all the things that they released. Even though they said Ripple is not selling securities, but in the papers they kind of said they're selling securities, but not to, not through a exchange that has securities or something like that. So it's quite ambiguous. Then what's the rubric of really categorize it? So, but to me, our fund thesis, it's quite simple. We want to invest in a trustless, decentralized network that is going to, well, I don't want to say not compliant, but it will be its own regulation. It will be its own space, because that's what we, especially for our generation, that's what we kind of envisioned crypto and Web3 to be. Not really challenging the traditional finance space, but at least coexisting, right? So I think that is something that we should aim for, instead of trying to adapt, trying to, otherwise there would be, why do we need to disrupt, right?
I very much agree with what you said, and I think, honestly, maybe I'm going to make some enemies by saying this, but pure and absolute decentralization is utopian to my knowledge and to my thinking. However, it should be, again, a driver. It should be something that you tend towards all the time, with the limits of your business, right? Because, again, depending on what you're building, it's a broad question. So depending on what you're building, you cannot decentralize everything. But one thing you can decentralize in the vast majority of businesses is decision power. DAOs are an extremely good example of this. So again, pure decentralization is, to my mind, not doable. Maybe there's been some examples here and there, and to be honest, I would like to be wrong. But it really depends on what you're building, and you should be tending toward it for as much as you can, for as long as you can, just because it makes sense, right? Centralized entities have been a problem for ever. So, just decentralizing at least decision power, even if it's, minimal, is the way to go, to my mind.
Thanks. Before we wrap up, I have one last question, because so far we talk about things that have prevented mass adoption, like maybe the technology is not ready, maybe the bear market was there. Could we also say that there was something else that stole the spot of star of the show from the blockchain, and it's called AI, which was the main mass adoption maybe topic of the year?
I don't consider AI to be massively adopted as well. So I want to really clarify on what do we call mass adoption. First of all, it's what is mass adoption? Is that we're going to the scale of mobile internets, or it's just going to be an enterprise solution, or it's just going to be within the DeFi community, which is already pretty big right now, that is going to be self-sustainable, that is going to be helping people solve problems, that is going to answer to pain points that is arising in the world. So is that mass adoption, or does everyone have to use MetaMask, right? So that is my kind of the things that I always think about. And secondly is that for mass adoption, we really need to think about the mass, right? So what are the problems at? Right now, obviously, we are building a lot of infra projects and a lot of perpetual DEX or DEX on infra projects. Is that the only thing that we need on on layer 2s, right? Can we build something more, or that is all we're gonna get, right? So those are the things that we need to think about. Obviously, the fundamentals, the layer 1, layer 2s, they're important for scalability, interoperability, no question about it. But also, those are not going to the mass, right? What do we build on top? It can't just be perpetual DEX, right? Yeah. So
What about the AI?
yeah, for AI, to me, I think it is going to be a greatly efficient tool for us or any people who has to increase their efficiency. But I think the purpose of Web3 is well, the efficiency part is what we're trying to increase, but the most part for us is we're trying to redefine the structure that people make decisions, for example, make transactions. So I think the tools that we are, the purpose of two industries, they're widely different, like I said. So I think the definition of mass adoption of two industries are going to be vastly different. Yeah.
Thank you.
And honestly, to come back to your question, I don't think that AI is really stealing the show. I mean, if you see it from like a money perspective, yes, of course it is. I mean, just look at the VC investments from 2022 in crypto compared to 2023. I think it's like divided by 10 or something. And AI is the contrary. But the thing is, I don't think it's really stealing the show, but rather creating another one, in the sense that, again, blockchain and AI are, to my mind, complementary. Because the thing is, to come back on what was said, AI allows you to to be extremely effective, but not necessarily in a qualitative way, because you can do anything. But as we say, like jack of all trades, master of none, in a way that you can now be a designer extremely quickly. You can now be a consultant and ask ChatGPT on how you should, talk to a company. You can become anything with much less actual, tangible added value than someone who's been in the works for, let's say, years or decades. And the thing is, we need blockchain for truth and the veracity of information. And, AI is cool. You can make cool pictures with it. You can make cool presentations with it. But when you actually want to make sure that the person you're talking to is legit, or when you're consulting on information, AI is not going to be the thing that proves to you that it's actually valuable, I think blockchain is one of the ways to guarantee that. So they work alongside each other very well, I think.
Perfect. Sorry, I have to interrupt you guys because it's time for lunch. But I think it's a good news. People are starving at the moment. So thank you guys. It was very interesting.
Thank you,
GameFi, AI,
everyone.
mass
Pleasure.
adoption.